It's so nice to have you on the show. I'm so glad we can make this work. And I can't wait to hear about, the origins of 50 Best, how it started, how you got involved, and the future of it. So, why don't you start by introducing yourself and tell us what you do and how you got there?
Sure. Hey, Susan, and thank you very much for having me on. I know we've been trying to cross paths to make this work for a while now. So thank you very much for bearing with me. Yeah, I guess I'm Mark Sansom. I am the content director for the world's 50 best bars and the world's 50 best hotels. I've been with the brand roughly just coming up to 5 years. Previous to that, I was a travel magazine editor for a global brand called Food and Travel, which has got 8 international editions. I was there for sort of 5 or 6 years. Before that, I was commissioning editor on Men's Health magazine, doing their sort of food and drink content, which was quite different to everything else that I've sort of done since. And before that, I was working for a London restaurant guide called Square Meal. So yeah, 20 years in hospitality. It's been thick and fast.
Now, what made you jump over to the 50 Best content editing? And maybe tell a little bit about what exactly is a content editor and how you do it at 50 Best.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I was actually when I left Food and Travel magazine, I was actually going to go freelance and start a career, which probably wouldn't have worked for me. I'm one of those people that likes to know what they're doing when they get up every morning, and I think the sort of fear of pitching lots of stories and not knowing what's going to be accepted and taking lots of no's, I don't think that would have sat well with me. So it worked out quite nicely. The managing director of 50 Best, a guy called Tim Webb, I've known for many years. Sort of our paths have crossed at events and what have you. And yeah, when I just actually resigned from Food and Travel, he got in touch with me and said, "We're looking for somebody to come over and head up our sort of bars division." And having not worked specifically in bars before, I'd previously done a lot around restaurants and chefs. And being a keen visitor and advocate of bars, it was quite exciting for me. It was something new. I was in my sort of early 30s, so I thought, yeah, why the hell not? Let's go and travel the world and drink some amazing cocktails all over the place. So yeah, I haven't looked back. It's a really great role. In terms of what the sort of being a content director entails, I guess it's probably broader than just magazine journalism is what what I was doing previously. There's still a big missioning element of stories around drinks, hospitality, chefs, restaurants, and hotels. So having had a bit of a background in editing and commissioning, that's all been very, very handy. But the new part for me is around the actual management of the website and the selection of our panel of voters all over the world, and how we create our lists. And probably the most exciting part is the live events. I've done sort of put on a few live events with Food and Travel for their reader awards, what have you. But the live events that we do with 50 Best are really our bread and butter. And that's the most exciting part for me. It's almost similar to that kind of magazine trope where you publish a magazine and then you stop and then you get going again. But with live events, you know that those 1,000 people or those 1,500 people in the room, they're all there for you and your event. So as soon as that event's done, that sense of an ending is just it's pretty amazing. And once you've completed the event and it's all gone smoothly, the buzz is up there with anything I've felt from anything I've done in work or sport or anything outside of life. So yeah, it's a really fascinating part of the job.
Yeah, I was at the one in London, and oh my goodness, it was a few years back, and I think it was 2019. I'm sorry, 2021, and it was super, super exciting. And you were there, announcing them all. So I'm sure that must be it's a real thrill for you to do that.
Yeah, 2021 was a big year, to be honest, because we're still in the midst of the pandemic, and we were meant to be taking the 50 Best Bars show outside of London for the first time, but with what happened in sort of early 2020, we thought it'd be safer and easier for us to host the event in London. Now, when we said that we were going to host a live event, which was one of the first big global events that London had hosted since the pandemic, we were a little bit nervous. Obviously, one, that people were going to attend; two, that they essentially would be able to get into the country with all the testing that was on at the moment.
All
And
right.
yeah, so we had to massively reduce capacity. The Roundhouse where we held it, usually they have a capacity of about 1,000, but we had to take that down to about 500 to bear in mind social distancing. And then I don't know what, Susan, you obviously know bartenders pretty well, and they were not so prepared in terms of the testing requirements that we needed to get people into the country. So I was basically running a pandemic COVID testing hotline for about 3 days before, and then yeah, the event itself, we did have a presenter from Top Gear ready to present it and list out the awards, but on the morning of the event, he came down with COVID, so he obviously couldn't attend. And having written the script myself, the team were like, look, we either get some random in who's never seen the script before and they jump on the stage and probably make a hash of it, or you get up and make a hash of it yourself. So yeah, I kind of took that on, and yeah, really enjoyed it. Actually, it was a bit of a baptism of fire, and I'm glad I didn't have to think about it for too long, getting up in front of people. But it was great fun, and it really resonated with the community. You know, I mean, I know those bartenders, I know how hard they've worked to keep going through the pandemic, and that one in 2021, I still remember it, December 7th, 2021.
Mhm.
It was really emotional for everyone who was involved, and yeah, just really glad to throw the party, which we do at 50 Best.
Yes, absolutely. I did feel that in the room as well. Now, when you joined 50 Best, uh, kind of where was it? How long has it been going, or how long had it been going? And, when you came in, kind of where did you see it going? As well as, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how it started and maybe a tiny bit about the judging process in case people don't know it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's quite an interesting genesis story for sort of 50 Best itself. So back in 2002, it was 50 Best Restaurants came as an idea in the back of a magazine called Restaurant Magazine, now sadly shuttered. The then editor had the idea of coming up with a list of the 50 best restaurants in the world, and he asked 50 of his peers all over the world to name their 5 favorite restaurants all over the world. And the list that came back was really, really interesting. They printed it in the back of the magazine. I think it was the November issue, 2002. And the way it just took up from there, and how interested people were in it. Well, the team at the time had no idea. And essentially that restaurants list is now in its 21st year, just grown and grown and grown in recognition. Now that we have 1,080 voters with restaurants now, and split into 27 regional global academies, which are each headed by an academy chair who selects their region's panels. Those panelists cast their votes, and we essentially at 50 Best just compute those votes and provide the list of the 50 best
Mhm.
restaurants, 50 best bars, and soon to be the 50 best hotels. And yeah, so 50 best bars followed suit not too soon after in 2009. Um, and yeah, that's been going from strength to strength. So we're nearly at a point where we're going to be celebrating 15 years with 50 best bars. And it's just amazing to see how both the on-trade community really sort of value that list, and the lengths that we go to really get the right voters and make sure that the votes are all valid. And we're obviously, in recent years, we've been audited by Deloitte, who's an independent adjudicator, so people can know that
Mhm.
the list is super robust and secure, and people can trust it. And yeah, it's been going from strength to strength, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. You know?
Yeah, 2009 seems so early when you think of cocktails. It was quite forward thinking then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd say that I wouldn't say that we brought about the renaissance in sort of good cocktail bars, but we certainly assisted with it. We certainly brought them to the consumer's perspective. I think real sort of high end artisan craft cocktail bars almost had like a bit of a niche among the industry and among people who really like
Mhm.
cocktails. But brands like 50 Best and magazines which focus on cocktail culture have really put them first and foremost in the eyes of consumers. And now I think people, probably not quite as many people, will go out for dinner as they will drinks, but people will focus their travel itineraries, their visits to new cities, their visits to their own city around where they might be drinking as well as where they might be eating, which is super good for us, good for our business, and good for cocktail bars themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And having just been to Barcelona for the Paradiso Sustainability Summit, I mean, at 4 o'clock when it opens, I mean, the line is around the corner, just keeps on going. And, being the number one best bar in the world, well, that's not surprising, but not everyone was speaking Spanish. These are people who are traveling specifically to come because it is on the number one on your list.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting story to go with that actually. So the day after Paradiso was announced as the world's best bar, sponsored by Terra, which was on the 8th of October last year, 2022. Giacomo Giannotti and his wife Margherita Seda, they both sent me videos from outside Paradiso. Look, they were used to having a queue. They used to open at 6 o'clock. But the queue, I mean, it must have been 500 deep. I mean, you've been to that little street, and it was snaking up and down. And they haven't had great relations with their neighbours, and now I think they're even worse. But yeah, the new 4 p.m. opening time has been because they were named number one. Now they have to open on more days of the week. I think they now open on Sunday as well. They previously didn't, but for people, relatively small businesses, if we can give them like a boost up for amazing people who work so hard for the industry, work so hard for their consumers, work so hard for their staff to really sort of push the boundaries in cocktail culture. We're just here to give people a leg up and really sort of support the people that need it and that deserve it. And certainly Paradiso, Giacomo, Margarita, and the whole team are people that deserve it as much as anyone.
Oh, absolutely. And they couldn't be more hospitable to every single person that comes in. I mean, literally, you walk in and they're like, ciao, come va to everyone. And they start singing. And literally, they do it to almost every single person. So I do love that they are up there and they received such an award, or such I guess, a designation. Now, when you entered into it, um, what status, how, was it, and how did you foresee kind of the future of it, how it would grow or how it has grown?
I guess there's two kind of sides to that. There's both the business side and the recognition among consumers. So I think, like I mentioned to start with, I joined in early 2019, at which point the
Mhm.
bars division didn't have a specific head of content. Essentially, we knew that there was real potential for growth, having seen how people respond to our 50 best restaurants list, but we weren't quite at the level where it was somebody's sole responsibility. So I was very lucky when they wanted me to do that. It was really great for me to actually focus on bars and the bar industry and really devote the content which 50 Best can produce, the content engine, if you will, purely towards bars. And that was a lot. So our bosses at 50 Best invested quite a lot in pushing us in front of consumers, invested a lot in our commissioning budgets, and essentially helps us tell the stories that might be interesting to both consumers and trade, and sort of bring those
Mhm.
bring those two strands together. So yeah, and the brand side and the business side of it, we had roughly 12 sponsors, premium liquor brands from all over the world coming to partner with us at our events. I'm really happy to report at the most recent event that we've just hosted in Mexico, which was in San Miguel de Allende for North America's 50 Best Bars. We had roughly sort of 25 different brands with us. So we've almost doubled in size in terms of the brands. So for our bosses, that sort of increase in revenue has really been quite deserved. And in terms of the eyes of the consumer, we're just going from strength to strength. As I was mentioning, it's quite a zeitgeisty thing to go out to cocktail bars now, particularly post pandemic, where cocktail bars are really investing in their food program and in their drinks programs, which means you can sit there and drink all night with lower ABV serves. You can have almost no alcohol serves, and it can be a really interesting night. And people are thinking about staying the whole night in bars and maybe not moving on to restaurants. So to be at the I don't know at the part of that change or part of that path has been a real honor for us, and we're really lucky to have the influence that we do over the consumer and trade sector.
I'm sure, and I've seen it, even your website, I've noticed it growing as well, with not only the list for the 50 best restaurants, 50 best bars, but also you've added the 51st to the 100, you've added, um, a sustainability tab, a recovery tab. Can you maybe explain how each of those grew separately and, how they originated?
For sure, yeah. So the 51 to 100 list, it was something we launched in the restaurant side of things quite a long time ago, and we only brought that into the world's 50 best bars in 2018, so the year before I joined. So it's been going a little while, but the kind of ideology behind that is that we can only sell it. There can only be 50 of the best bars in the world, right? 1 to 50. So by extending the list to 51 to 100, it obviously lets us double that number of great bars, great hospitality experiences that we can shine the spotlight on. So we appreciate that it's only another 50, but what that list is designed to do is to show those bars, generally in perhaps more remote cocktail locations, or locations where people are
Mhm.
slightly less familiar, that they're on the right track, that they're almost breaking into the 50 best list and giving consumers 100 great bars to choose from, instead of just 50. But probably the most interesting development that we've had at 50 Best in recent years was 50 Best Discovery, which was a project I've been heading up since 2019. So we launched in November 2019 with roughly 1,600 venues, restaurants and bars that have all received multiple votes from our voters. So we kind of call it the more egalitarian face of 50 Best. So you need
Uh-huh.
far fewer votes to qualify. And then we arrange that by location. So if somebody's going to London or Sydney, all of those bars, with both bars and restaurants with those votes, will be placed onto 50 Best Discovery, all geotagged, located, so people can really plan their itineraries around that particular platform. And yeah, as I say, we launched that in 2019 and then went into the pandemic in 2020. So we kind of mothballed that for a little while, but we relaunched it in 2021, added a load of new venues as we did in 2022, and now we're sitting at just over 3,000 venues on 50 Best Discovery, and the feedback that we're getting and the footfall on the website is that it's literally blowing everything out the water. I think people like it because they know that they're all expert approved. It's all restaurant critics, bartenders, chefs who provide those recommendations. So you know that when you book a 50 Best Discovery rated venue, you're getting the best in that particular city. It might not be a classic fine diner or a super luxury hotel bar. It could be someone's favorite backstreet noodle bar in Tokyo, or it could be just a little speakeasy off the concourse in Bucharest or something. We've got everything on there, and I think that's really resonating with people. And as I mentioned, we're launching the World's 50 Best Hotels in September. And with that first list, we're going to be adding roughly 350 hotels onto the Discovery platform as well. So that's going to be your one-stop shop for all your holidays in years to come. And it's what we're really excited, and what we're really going to be pushing in probably the next 5 to 10 years. And that's going to be big for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And two things came to mind while you were talking about that is that, you know, I know a lot of bartenders and I've been to a lot of bars, and, something sometimes comes up, which is like, how can it's really, really tough to get on that 50 best list. How do you get on the 50 best list? And for there to be also a home for all those other places that people really loved to be, on your site is a great thing, because it makes you feel also a part of this 50 best community, and that your hard work, wherever you are, whether it's a tiny, as you were saying, a tiny off the street in Bucharest or a tiny little town in Italy, that you're also being seen by, this the brand of 50 best, and you're under their wing. But also I thought, wouldn't it be funny, and it might happen, that there's one place that is under the umbrella of both, of all three, should I say, 50 best hotels, has the 50 best restaurant, and and a 50 best bar. Has that happened so
And
far?
that's a really salient observation, actually, Susan. There's only been one bar and one restaurant which has made two live lists at the same time. World lists, and that's Bulgari Bar in Dubai, which is in the Bulgari Hotel, which also has restaurant Nico Ramito, which has been on the world's 50 best restaurants list. So yeah, they've done
Uh-huh.
really well. They came in at number 46 last year in the bars list, and I can't remember exactly where they were in restaurants, but they were at between 30 and 50 as well. And that Bulgari Hotel is an absolute stunner. I don't know if you've seen it or if people have seen pictures.
I haven't been there, no.
It's super expensive, but it's up there with some of the world's best hotels. So if perhaps that property was lucky enough to make it onto the hotels list, that would be your star ticket. You wouldn't have to leave the confines of the resort to check all three out under one roof. But yeah, Bulgari Hotel in Dubai is the only property that's housed two under one roof, and they're very proud of it, as you can imagine.
I'm sure. So, as you said, in September, we might see,
Exactly.
the first triumvirate, I guess, might be the word for
That's a
it.
good word for it. Excellent word.
Yes, yes. So let's cross our fingers because that would be a lot of
Good,
fun.
good story.
Also, yes. Now some of the other things that you have, sustainability. You have the sustainability tab. How did that emerge, and what does that
For
encapsulate?
sure, yeah. I mean, sustainability across all of hospitality is a huge sort of touch point at the moment. Around 8 years ago in bars, 6 years ago in bars, we launched the Kettle One Sustainable Bar Award, which has receives great entrance from bars all over the world each and every year. But what we thought was really important with that, I mean, our voters and us as employees of 50 Best, we know quite a lot about bars and restaurants, but one thing we don't know much about is sustainability and to how to really up bars credentials, or you can't really vote on that kind of thing unless you've got that real expertise, that sort of skill set. So we reached out to a number of different companies, and we now work with the Sustainable Restaurant Association, which is a global company, but headquartered in London, and they now do all of our third party analysis of the restaurants and bars which want to take part in those awards. So we essentially ask them to update a questionnaire and an audit style for each restaurant and bar awards that we do. And it's gradually getting super sophisticated and super developed. Some of the bars say that it takes a long time to complete. Some of them say that it's even 3 or 4 hours. But what they get from entering that award is a bespoke assessment from the SRA. You go back to them and talk about their practices and really sort of advise them on how they might become more sustainable in the future, and what they could be doing, and how that compares with the rest of the world. So we're almost building a community of those kind of sustainable bars who share ideas, share information about how they're working with new products and local products, and reusing things, and not you making as much waste, and composting. And it's not something that we shy away from. We realize that hospitality, it does come with quite a lot of waste traditionally, but anything we can do to support those properties, those venues, those bars, those restaurants who are really making waves to go against making waste, we're really happy to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I was just, as I said, at the Paradiso Sustainability Summit. What was really exciting is that they brought together a lot of the winners of that Kettle One award and your award. Little Red Door was there, Ray, Him Cook, um, sorry, Him Cook, which I can't ever pronounce correctly. And kind of came to, I don't want to say came to consensus. It was kind of a little bit of like a consensus conference, but shared their findings and how they all work so differently in all different aspects of sustainability, but how lovely that they had been recognized for this by you as well, and Kettle One for doing this.
For sure, yeah. I mean, the three that you kind of just highlighted there, like you say, they're like night and day in terms of bars. You've got Himcock in Oslo, which produces essentially most of its own spirits and distillates, and is a pioneer of no waste and locality. Oslo is relatively isolated. Things are quite expensive
Mhm.
there. So it makes sense for them to produce things themselves and not ship things in from a long way. Little Red Door which was last year's winner, is a complete bastion of French produce, very French in its identity of trying to keep it within France's borders. But the way their most recent menu, Flourish, I think it was called, they've gone specifically to each producer of a key ingredient. I think there was an amazing walnut drink which came on the menu. There's sort of chest.
It is, and I tried it.
Oh, isn't it good?
It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the way they've approached it to really prioritize those small producers, like we often see in the restaurant world, is great. And another bar, Alchimico, in Cartagena
Of
in
course.
Colombia. I think Jean Trin was at this Your Sustainability Summit as well. And they're doing it a completely different way. So they have during the pandemic, Jean bought a farm in Colombia, which housed all of the employees of his bar, which is huge, right? It's over 3 stories in Cartagena, employs I
Mhm.
think north of 100 people who didn't have anywhere to live in the pandemic. So he shipped everyone off to this farm in Colombia, put everyone up in some reasonable accommodation, and they all farmed the land. And now that farm provides the majority of the produce for the bar. So three very different case studies, but all driving for the same goal.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I had no idea. They had been at the sustainability summit the year before.
Ah, right.
So
Gotcha.
I I didn't know that, and that is incredible. It is incredible, how each of them sees it, and they all learn from each other. But now back to you guys. So now you also have if I'm right, the recovery.
Yeah, so that was a project. 50 Best Recovery
Yes.
was our kind of I, all we came up with to sort of support the hospitality industry during the pandemic. We realized that the people didn't want another list. They didn't want another like guide for bars and restaurants that they couldn't visit. And we were 19 years old as a business at that point, and we thought, right, what can we do to really help those bars and restaurants and the community of which we consider ourselves a part? So to a person, everyone decided that, right, they need some money. People need money and they need money quick. So we essentially turned all of our team's resources into raising money for restaurants and bars all over the world. So we initially we put together a charity cookbook called Home Comforts at the time, where we paired 50 best bartender recipes with 50 best chef recipes, and that sold like hotcakes. And every single penny of that was put together to the 50 best recovery fund. But the most lucrative element of that was the 50 best bid for recovery auction. So we went out to all of our partner brands, our spirits brands, our brands that support us with the restaurant industry, San Pellegrino and Aquapana and Perrier in bars, and asked people to donate great prizes that people could bid on. And we had some amazing ones. I think probably the biggest sort of the headline news story from it was Mictors, who donated a rare release barrel to which they've never done before. They'd never sold one barrel on its own, and it broke the world record for the price of bourbon ever sold, which I'm trying to think back now, but it was in the region of $150,000, which was huge. And the bourbon barons were the group of people who bought it, and then that's a very, very unique thing for them. And the whole auction, the cookbook, and all of our other fundraising enterprises, we ended up raising $1.3 million
Oh my goodness.
for the hospitality industry, which we donated back in the form of grants. We asked for bars and restaurants to come to us from all over the world, let us know where they are, and they had to fill out a short form, and we donated that money to charities and individual hospitality venues all over the world. And like when I'm actually meeting them now at our events and when I'm sort of traveling the world, the more and more people that say, look, it might have only been £5,000 or €5,000 that you're able to donate, but not only did it help us keep going and pay our staff for an extra month, it also meant that somebody out there really cared and they were thinking about trying to support us. And that meant
Mhm.
as much as the actual physical cash. So that was super reassuring and rewarding, that we were able to help and pivot our business into really focusing on the community. But yeah, I think it's given us a place in the industry now where people think, right, it's 50 best. Sure, it's a business where people trying to make money for ourselves and the businesses that we work for, but also that it is about community at the same time. Now we never masquerade ourselves as a charity institution. We're here to make good business for ourselves and create amazing live events, but we also really care about the people who we sort of spotlight in everything that we do.
Absolutely, and I always say it's such a small community really of, all of us in this, at least in the bar. I don't know the restaurant part, but definitely the bar community. We kind of all know each other worldwide. We're all on each other's podcasts. We all, there's only so many of us, and you're all family, and we had to support each other no matter, everyone's in it for business, but when the chips are down, you guys were there, and that really meant something.
Yeah, thank you. I think that really did
So,
come to the fore during the pandemic. The number of connections that were forged over the internet and sort of online happy hours and people getting together virtually from all corners of the earth really sort of came together. And then now we're able to start traveling again. those relationships are now manifest. People are doing guest shifts all over the world. You're seeing, well, the guys from maybe Sammy in Sydney, which Australia is a long way from everywhere, right? It can be somewhat an isolated bar community, but now I bumped into the lads in Mexico City a few weeks ago, which was pretty random, and they're doing they did various guest shifts all up the West Coast, and they were all from relationships they built during the lockdown period. So yeah, more power to everyone who's traveling the world and really looking to get out there after that horrendous couple of years period.
Yeah, and Giacomo was just here in London, and yeah, and I saw the Maybe Sammy guys in Venice, so
Yeah.
yeah, you don't it's nice to be able to see them and continue it. Now, what about the future? Now you hinted at it. Well, you didn't hint at, you said there's 50 best hotels. So can you talk a little bit about that, and also what else you may be doing?
For sure, yeah. 50 Best Hotels has been something that's been in the pipeline for 50 Best for a long, long time. I think part of Tim, and my managing director's idea about bringing me in from a travel background was to sort of put me on that sphere of it. I've already got quite a few contacts in the hotel space. So for us to be able to have an authority in hotels and launch that award ceremony in September is really exciting for us. So yeah, we're starting it in the same way that we did with restaurants and bars. So we've got 9 global regions on this occasion with Academy chairs who are selecting the voters. And the vote has just been complete, actually. We've got 580 people casting their votes from all over the world. And the list is just coming together at the moment. So I can't reveal too much about that, but it will be released on September 19th. And the award ceremony is going to take place at the Guildhall in London, and it's going to be quite the show. So for any hoteliers, we're going to have 50 of the best coming in from all over the world, and that's it's going to be a big party. We've just signed off on the venue. We've just signed off on the feast the night before. So yeah, we got roughly 3 months time before we go live with that. But it's been really rewarding and really exciting to work on.
Oh, I'm so excited. I love it. I love a luxury hotel,
No,
so
we love it.
who doesn't, right? Is there anything else in the 50 best bar kind of segment
Nothing
of
I
it
can
that
talk about
is
just
going to be
yet.
new?
Nothing I can talk about just yet, I'm afraid. But we're always looking to grow the community and shine the spotlight more widely on different facets of the bar community. But where we only launched North America's 50 Best last year, 2022, big launch for us. Another one which took a lot of planning. But let's just say that in the next few years, there's probably going to be another region that we're going to look to spotlight as well.
Oh, how exciting. Now, usually I end with asking for the top tip for the home bartender. But while we were chatting, I was thinking maybe you could shine a light on kind of the top tip for any smaller bar or anyone who may be listening who is potentially would, give their right arm to be on the list. Kind of like the top tip for how to even, get in the running for that or prepare the bar for that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the single most important thing about a bar or a bar that's really looking to push is its hospitality experience. It's that first contact point with guests, how they're made to feel as they come into the bar. Really making them made feel aware of, even if it's just a nod from a bartender, or even if it's just a glass of water or a menu put in front of them pretty quickly. For me, if that's what sets a great bar apart from a good one. Lots of bars create amazing cocktails, and sure, the liquid is super important. The glassware is super important, but it's the personal touch. I think, particularly post pandemic, that the bars should really focus on to set their identity apart from a great bar next door. That's what really hits me quite hard with when I go to bars.
That's great advice. Now, I do always end with if you could be anywhere drinking
Ooh.
anything, that could be anywhere in the world. Um, what would that be, and where would that be?
Oh, I've always been a big fan of the Caribbean, and I like to get myself out there. Well, I haven't been for many years actually, but I'd like to be having played golf probably on Barbados, and then sitting in on a beach bar, drinking something with rum and some sort of fruit juice in it. That's where I'd like to be right now, not in South London.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good at any time for me as well, so I totally understand. I really wanna thank you for being here and talking 50 best, and, I, look forward to that list, that 50 best hotel list in September. It's really exciting, and, seeing you at one of the events.
Amazing. Yeah. Just thank you so much for having me on, Susan. And yeah, our next big list reveal is on 18th of July, which is Asia's 50 best bars. So please do tune in to our social channels at 50 best bars. And we'll be revealing the list of Asia's 50 best on 18th of July. So yeah, thank you very much, Susan. Real pleasure.
Absolutely, and all the links will be on my site, so anyone can, find any of those lists on there. So, it was great to have you, and thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.